Ladies and gentlemen, I am Sherman D. Manning. I am the author of The Truth About O.J. Simpson, Race, Class, Money, and Justice. That is my newest book. I have 20 other books that have been published. I encourage you to go to your local bookstore and or go to Amazon.com and get a copy of The Truth About O.J. Simpson, Race, Class, Money, and Justice by yours truly, Sherman D. Manning. Also, get my book, Creating Monsters, and get my book, Kids Killing Kids. I think you'll find those to be quite interesting reads. And The Truth About O.J. Simpson, I talk a lot about Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders is there. Also, this guy who is a narcissist and a pedophile by the name of Donald, who's running for president likewise. Donald is also in my book, America's Richest Pedophiles, and that's not a joke. I say that with integrity and authenticity. If you are listening to this podcast, do me a favor, stop what you're doing and send me an email and let me know that you heard this podcast. It is encouraging to us and it is also instructive to us. Tell me some subjects you would like for me to cover on this podcast. Email me at shermandmanning@gmail.com. That is shermandmanning@gmail.com. Just drop me a brief email to let me know you heard the podcast. If I hear from you all and I know that you're listening to it, then we will keep doing the podcast and we will do it with more structure and we will do it with more consistency. If I do not hear from you, then we will find something better to do. I enjoy doing the podcast, but I also enjoy feedback. And when I get feedback, I know that we're reaching somebody, and it makes me want to do this and want to do it more. So, anybody who's listening right now, drop me an email. ShermanDManning@gmail.com, simply to say, I heard you. Do that and do that with deliberate speed, please. Lindsey Graham is a homosexual, from what I've heard. I'm not just denigrating people. I'm not here to try to destroy anyone's character. I know this is 2016 and gay ain't what it used to be. And, we can argue the salaciousness of gay all day long. But the bottom line, sin is sin. And what I found is that a lot of us want to single out gays because it's something that we can recognize quicker and it's something that is usually a little bit more obvious. So if a person's gay, we start talking about abomination and going to hell and they this and they that. But when it comes to lying and whoremongering and all of the other things that are also sins, we are a lot more silent. So I'm not saying anything in particular about him except that the guy wanted to be president and he's gay. And I've heard that from a political source who's very close to Lindsey Graham. Somebody can ask him if you'd like. I've also heard that Ted Cruz goes, both ways. And I found that to be quite interesting, especially being the judgmental and mean-spirited person that Cruz is. I know that he's calculating and he's just comes across as extremely fun. He just doesn't seem to be authentic at all to me. He comes across as a fake, and I don't like politicians who come across like that. They make me itch, and I just don't like hearing the guy talk. This is just general chatter this morning. We will do, as I've said, more podcasts that are structured, more podcasts in which we take one subject and exhaust it and elucidate it if possible. And the more I hear from you, the more it makes me brush up and get ready to do a podcast. So I'm going to remind you again, it won't cost you anything. Stop what you're doing, please. If you're listening to this podcast, if you download it, first of all, like it and follow us. Secondly, pick up your smartphone and send me an email at shermandmanning@gmail.com simply to say that you heard me. please do that with deliberate speed. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast, you can also send me an email at shermandmanning@gmail.com. Go to your bookstores, ladies and gentlemen, get a copy of The Truth About O.J. Simpson, Race, Class, Money, and Justice, and let us know what you think about that book after you read it. This is an important election, and we've got to get people to get out and vote like never before, because there's too much at stake in this election. All of the advances made by the Obama administration, most of which have been painstakingly difficult, these advances could be reverted. We could see these advances turn back if we were to allow a fascist, a xenophobe, a racist, and a megalomaniac like Donald into the White House. And so I'm asking every person who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who is not registered to vote, to get them registered and to get them to the polls in November and make sure that they vote. If you don't vote, you don't count. Vote as you please. But ladies and gentlemen, please vote. Please vote. Let's talk a moment about justice. Justice too long delayed is justice denied. And there are so many people in this country sitting in jail cells and in prison cells across the United States today for things that they did not do. And then there are some who are there for things they did do, but they got too much time for too little crime. And many of them did not make a mistake. They were born into a mistake. Many of them are not criminals. They're drug addicts. And addiction is an affliction, and it is a disease that needs to be treated and dealt with. There are people in this society who would rather never treat addictions. They simply want to lock people up and throw away the key. And so we must do something about that. We must deal with it at the cause level and stop just dealing with it at the results of that cause. Let's find out what got this person addicted. Let's find out what made this person do whatever it is that they did. And if we're not talking about some vicious rapist or some sick pedophile like Donald, then let's begin to treat some of this stuff as a disease or as a result of a disease and get people the help that they need. I don't believe in a welfare state. I believe that welfare itself should be an emergency ambulance, not a full-time hospital. I believe that education is the bridge to liberation. I believe that you can educate yourself and think your way out of any situation almost. But I also understand and I'm cognizant of the fact that it's hard to talk to a man about education when he's hungry. It's hard for a student to learn when he or she is in an abusive environment. And so there's a lot of things we need to do rather than just pointing the finger at the poor and telling them to get over it and to get better. I've often said that the rich get richer and the poor get prison. And in more than a decade in prison for me, wrongly convicted of a crime that I did not, would not, could not commit, I've probably found enough rich people in prison to count on one hand and have fingers remaining on that hand. Rich people don't go to prison. Only people who go to prison are poor folks and middle class folks, and not a whole lot of middle class people are there. Okay, get the book, The Truth About O.J. Simpson, Race, Class, Money, and Justice. Send me an email. Let me know that you listen to this podcast. I'll be back today with a longer podcast, I assure you, if I hear from you. If y'all don't email me, then I'll find something else to do because it'll mean you're not enjoying what you're hearing. So I'm serious about that. If you are listening right now and you enjoyed the podcast and you've listened and would like for me to move forward with these podcasts, then send me an email. If I don't get a substantial amount of emails, that means that I'm not reaching a substantial amount of people, and that means that I won't be doing the podcast anymore. ShermanDManning@gmail.com. Email me. You can't be who you are and who you were at the same time. You cannot be who you were and who you are at the same time. We can change. Thank you very kindly.